This is Seqeul number 7 of the Church of Uganda at 150. In this Seqeul, we shall see the tragedy of 1885. Mwanga is 18 years, is the new king, and something happens. He has an old man as Katikiro. His name is Mukasa. The man is out to see that something about Christianity is done to stop its spreading. But is surprised because the first act of Mwanga on the throne is to request the Roman Catholic missionaries who had been exiled to Tanganyika to return. And when they return, he awards them property or land at Narukorongo. So they now get a new center at Narukorongo, nearer to the Kabaka most likely. And therefore, the Katikiro is very worried. He starts to scheme to see how he will kill the speed and the growth of Christianity. Because as I've told you, for him, he was a sorcerer. Now, what happened is that in January, Alexander Mackay wanted to make a trip to the south of Lake Victoria, Ukerewe. And he got permission because they had to get permission. He got permission to travel, but he forgot to ask permission for pages, the porters, to accompany him. So he picked 3 of them: Yusuf Rugarama, a student of Christianity or catechism; Mako Kakumba, also a student of catechism; and Inua Serwanga, also a student of catechism at Natete. He chose those 3 to accompany him. And on the D-Day of the journey, they went to Lake Victoria and got into a boat and started the journey. But all along, Katikiro Mukasa was spying to see what will happen next. That as much as we've given permission to Alexander Mackay to travel, the permission for the pages had not been given. So the boys were seized. And Katikiro told the Kabaka that Mwanga should not meet Alexander Mackay about the pages, because he had deliberately tried to steal the boys. That is the language he was using. And he was trying to put a lot of evil into the head of Mwanga about these missionaries. And especially the Anglicans now, because now the Catholics were back and they were the darlings of the Kabaka. So now it was time to have the Anglicans punished as well. And this was the strategy of Katikiro Mukasa. So Katikiro Mukasa asks that the Kabaka punishes these page boys for trying to go away without permission. And according to him, they had committed a very terrible crime. And Mwanga accepted, and they were given the death penalty. Now, however, because it was not so much about the crime they had committed to travel without permission. As far as Katikiro Mukasa was concerned, his target was the Anglican Church. So he now says that, okay, wait a minute, they can be forgiven because this was just a wrong and they are young boys, they can be forgiven. Alexander Mackay went to the palace, but Mwanga refused to see him. They said, you cannot see the king is not willing to see you. So poor man, you could not save the boys. But now there was a condition. If these boys could renounce Christianity, could renounce Jesus Christ, then they will be free. Then they will be saved. You see, Katikiro Mukasa playing now. And he knows that therefore this is a target of Christianity. If you are really Christians, then die and become martyrs. So he was very surprised when the boys chose death. And this became the pioneer martyrs of Uganda. Yusuf Rugarama, Mako Kakumba, and Inua Serwanga. They were martyred at the swamps of Busega. It was a swampy area. They were mutilated, cut into pieces. Of course, that's what mutilation means. And then their mutilated bodies set on fire. The scene was terrible. The scene was to send shockwave across Uganda, to intimidate the young boys at Natete, to intimidate all those who are learning catechism in Christianity, that this is what might happen to you one day. And that message was very clear from the Catechumen. So on the 31st of January 1885, the first ever martyrdom happened. But there was more. Catechumen Mukasa was not finished. As you all know, most likely, the first bishop for Equatorial Diocese, which included Uganda, Tanganyika, and Kenya, and part of Southern Sudan, was created. And the first bishop consecrated was the Bishop, Right Reverend James Hannington, the man we saw as a priest visiting some 3 years previously, and stopping at Ujiji and then returning to Europe. He reached safely, and now he was appointed to be the first bishop of the Equatorial Diocese, which headquarters was at Fredericton near Mombasa. We already know about Fredericton. So this bishop becomes stubborn. He uses the east to approach Buganda. A message arrives when he was around the areas of Umumias in Western, warning him don't proceed, but apparently the warning came too late. He had already proceeded. As you all know, on reaching Busoga, the chiefs there were, of course, loyal to Buganda. They sent a message to Mwanga that here is a visitor approaching Buganda from the east. The only one who had ever done so, Chintu, conquered Buganda, so no one else would be allowed, and not even a Muzungu. And so Mwanga gave orders. But guess who gave orders? Was it really the 18-year-old king, or was it the man behind the destruction of Christianity? One Catechumen Mukasa. That one I want to leave it to you. But here is the order. Kill him. So Chief Lumba of Busoga receives the order to kill, and he kills. He kills. Bishop Hannington was murdered in October of the year 1885. But before he died, actually on the 29th of October 1885, but before he died, the palace chief of chiefs, that title is called Omsalo, is the head of the palace, pages. At that time, his name was Joseph Barikudembe, who was also undergoing catechism at Narukorongo under the Roman Catholics. And what does he say? He pleads for the bishop who had approached Buganda from the east. He says his intentions are not political. They cannot be like our ancestors, what they feared for. He's a religious man, he's a Christian, he means peace. And that particular statement became treason. Because of what he said, he had become a spy as far as Catechumen Mukasa was concerned. Because of what he said to defend the Muzungu, he had therefore become a spy of the colonialists, or call them the Europeans who were taking over Africa. The previous year, in 1884, the conference of Berlin had taken place, and the Arabs had given word to Mwanga and Catechumen that a conference in Berlin had shared out Africa. And as far as the River Nile is concerned, all the way to Cape Town, all that route had been given to the British. Therefore, the British were to take over Buganda. And in that particular situation, here is a bishop approaching only 1 year after the Berlin conference. And you, Barikudembe, you are telling Mwanga and Mukasa that this man means peace and is using the route of conquerors. And Africa or Buganda is being conquered. And here is a conqueror who is likely to be coming. And you are telling us he's a man of peace. So they refused, and Hannington had to die. So he died, and in November, Catechumen Mukasa, very smart guy, decides that this spy who is the head of the palace, must also die. And so, on the day of the first anniversary of the death of Mutesa, Mwanga goes to Muziwazala Mpanga to pay his respects in memory. And on his way, they staged an assassination attempt, and it was staged. It was not actual. It was a staged assassination plot. And Mukasa says that, you see, all that staging of an assassination is the plot of Joseph Baliku Dembe, the head of the palace. So he's seized. Now he has the crime of an attempted murder on the Kabaka. He has a crime of being the spy. But one important thing that Katikiro Mukasa would never forget: there is a chance to forgive, and forgiveness can be given. And so, Joseph Baliku Dembe has an option to be free of all crimes as charged, as long as he proclaims that he has abandoned Christianity. But Joseph Baliku Dembe refuses. And what happens? This drug is sentenced to death, therefore is dragged to Nachivubo, where he is mutilated and his body burned. This was now the second martyrdom, if not the third. The Busega, the Hannington Mutebi in Busoga, and now the James Baliku Dembe, the James Baliku Dembe one. And so, up to today, we all know the memorial grounds in Nachivubo of that great martyr who refused to deny Jesus Christ simply because Katikiro Mukasa is playing his politics. So, as we end today's Seqeul, we can see how things are becoming terrible. And when we start next week, our second week Sequels, we are now going to see the tragedy of the 1886 martyrdom. 10 years after the arrival of Christianity in Uganda, blood is being shed. And as far as our church father Tertullian is concerned, it is the blood of the martyrs that is the seed of a church. Is this true in the case of Uganda or Buganda? We shall see in our second week of the Sequels. May the good God bless you as we celebrate Church of Uganda at 150. May the good God bless you.